The food from one of these fresh dog food brands was surprisingly delicious, and unfortunately the other one was kind of gross. Hey guys, it's Zach from the Pampered Pup. Now that I've had a first-hand experience with both companies, I wanted to do a comparison of Ollie and the Farmer's Dog to discuss how their fresh dog food compares in terms of quality. Things like how does it smell, how does it look, how does it taste. Also in terms of how convenient they are, how fast they ship, how easy it is to cancel your subscription. And finally, I want to compare the two on how they stack up in price. But before we get into that, I want to say that the Farmer's Dog can be a great choice for you and your pup if the quality of the food is really your highest priority. And also if you're looking for a company that offers a great level of convenience and customer support. On the other hand, with Ollie, I think unfortunately I wouldn't really recommend them to anyone. While I think that their customer support is great, I really did not like the taste of their dog food. So much so that I woke up thinking about how much I did not like it in the middle of the night after I ate it a couple of times. The texture's not great, the flavor's not great, but yeah, just not a food that I would really want to feed to my dog. It just doesn't have the same level of taste that a lot of these other fresh dog food brands offer. But in either case, if you do decide to choose the Farmer's Dog or Ollie for your pup, make sure to use my links in the description of this video to get a nice discount. At the time of filming, it's 50% off your first box for both companies, but that may change over time. So those links down there will always give you the best deal that I currently have access to. So the first thing I evaluate when I look at any of these fresh dog food recipes is simply how do they look? Does it look like nice, delicious food? Does it look like mush? Does it look like dog food? In the case of the Farmer's Dog, I evaluated 3 of their recipes. There was a beef recipe, a pork recipe, and a chicken recipe. And in all of these recipes, you could see nice big chunks of the ingredients. It wasn't quite as pronounced as you see in Nom Nom's recipes, but there's large chunks of vegetables. You could see whole lentils, carrots, broccoli, nice big chunks of meat, all of that. Definitely looked appealing, definitely looked appetizing. Didn't necessarily look like dog food to me. It looked like something that, I wouldn't be opposed to eating if it was put on my plate. On the other hand, with Ollie, I evaluated 2 of their recipes. That was the beef with sweet potatoes and the chicken with carrots. Right away, you could tell sort of a drastic difference in how these recipes look. Overall, they looked quite homogeneous, really no big chunks of ingredients, much more along the lines of a paste and much more kind of what you might expect when looking at dog food, frankly. Quite a big difference from what we saw in the recipes from the Farmer's Dog. Right? So moving on from the appearance, I evaluated the aroma of all these recipes. How do they smell? Is it appetizing? Is it something that I want to eat? So each of the 3 recipes that I smelled from the Farmer's Dog, notably, they smelled like their main ingredients. So in the case of the beef, the prominent smell was ground beef. In the case of the pork, the most prominent smell was pork. And in the case of the turkey recipe, it smelled like Thanksgiving leftovers. What I could really smell was turkey. That one was the most complex of the 3, I would say. You could possibly smell some carrots going on in there, or some of the other components came through a little bit. But generally, all 3 recipes from the Farmer's Dog smelled pretty much exactly, like what you would expect given the name of the recipe. Ollie, on the other hand, was a little bit more difficult. The smells were a little bit more convoluted. In both the case of the beef and the chicken recipe, the most prominent smell was probably the greens. It was a little hard to pick out, but definitely smelled a little bit like sour, not like bad food, but maybe a little acidic. And both of the recipes from Ollie, unfortunately, just didn't really smell that appealing. So the Farmer's Dog definitely had the hand up there. When I first thought of making this video, I actually intended to eat the Farmer's Dog and Ollie right here on camera. However, one of them was so gross I decided not to do it. However, I'll put links in the description to the other videos where you can watch me eat the Farmer's Dog and Ollie firsthand. When it came time to taste these fresh dog food recipes, I was surprisingly impressed with the quality of the food from the Farmer's Dog. All 3 recipes, the beef, the pork, and the turkey, were really quite tasty. They had nice textures, and they were kind of a pleasure to eat, to be honest. Like, if I was served that as human food, I would be perfectly happy with it. On the other hand, with Ollie's recipes, the thing that struck me right away with both the beef and the chicken recipe was the texture. It was, as I suspected, quite pasty. It really got caught in your mouth as you were sort of chewing it. The texture was almost sandy, not crunchy, of course, but you could feel like little grains on your tongue. It was fairly unpleasant. And the flavor itself was very, very strong. My guess is that the strong flavor came from the inclusion of organ meat, and I would guess that they just used too much, because the Farmer's Dog recipes also uses organ meat, at least in 2 of the 3 that I tried. And typically speaking, I'm a fan of organ meat myself in human cuisine, so I don't think the fact that it had organ meat in itself was really what was so off-putting. I think they just used too much. So to me, there's no question. If you want to be serving your dog delicious food, hands down, the winner is going to be the Farmer's Dog. So with my evaluations aside, there's a couple of other things I look at in terms of quality, and the first one is ingredients. Both of these companies use whole ingredients in their recipes, and they supplement with a nutrient blend so that they meet AAFCO standards. So both the Farmer's Dog and Ollie's recipes are formulated by veterinary nutritionists. The main difference here is that the Farmer's Dog says that their veterinary nutritionists are board certified, whereas Ollie does not. And both of these companies make their food in USDA inspected kitchens as well. And then in terms of nutrition, the main thing that I typically look at is the protein content as fed. And in the case of the farmer's dog, the recipes that I received range from 8 to 11% protein as fed, and Ollie ranges from 9 to 11% protein as fed. So they're really quite similar in that regard. After quality, the next big thing I evaluate is how easy are these companies to work with for the pet owners. Now, both the farmer's dog and Ollie do require a subscription to order their fresh dog food for your pup. However, in both cases, it's really, really easy to cancel your subscription. All you have to do is go to your account dashboard and say that you want to cancel. They do ask you a couple of questions as to why you're canceling, but after that, that's it. You won't receive any more shipments, you won't be billed, you're all good to go in that regard. In terms of shipping, I'm sure it's going to vary based on your location within the United States, but for me, the farmer's dog was really, really fast. I placed my order on a Sunday night, and the following Wednesday, it was there on my doorstep. So perhaps, 2 full business days in transit. With Ollie, I placed my order on a Saturday, and I received it on the following Friday. So it was 4 full business days in transit. Both of the packages arrived really well packed. They're on dry ice, the food's frozen nice and solid. The main difference I found was that the farmer's dog came packed with cellulose insulation. The best way to get rid of that is to dissolve it and wash it down your sink. Ollie, on the other hand, was packed with completely recyclable materials, so it was a little bit easier to get rid of. And in terms of how the food itself is packaged, I really like the way that the farmer's dog packages their frozen patties. They're laid out nice and thin so that they thaw really quickly in the fridge. And each frozen patty weighs about a pound, which I thought was a good amount to defrost every time you take something out of the freezer. Ollie's frozen patties, on the other hand, are a bit more like bricks. They're kind of large, they're kind of thick, and they're definitely going to take a bit more time to thaw. I also noted that Ollie's packages are 1.5 pound to 1 3/4 pound frozen patties, so it's a bit more to defrost for your dog. They do give you a nice cup tater and a scoop, so you can conveniently store your dog's food in the fridge, but it is definitely a bit more dog food to defrost each time. And last but not least, how much do each of these fresh dog foods cost? As I mentioned earlier, I tend to avoid the dollars per day and dollars per week metrics that these fresh dog food companies provide you when you sign up for their subscription services. The main reason for this is that I've found that they calculate your dog's nutritional requirements a little bit differently from brand to brand. So at the end of the day, you're getting different amounts of food from the different companies when you place an order. To make things a little bit more even, I prefer to evaluate the cost of the food on a dollars per pound basis. My calculations showed that the farmer's dog comes in at about $7 per pound, whereas Ollie comes in at about $6 per pound. Both of these are a bit more expensive than brands like Pet Plate and Nom Nom, which come in closer to about $4 per pound. But generally speaking, this is a fairly expected price for fresh dog food. So if you're going to be paying this much money for fresh dog food, to me there's no question you're getting a better deal with the farmer's dog. I think your pup's going to be a lot happier with the flavors there. If you want to look into a more affordable fresh dog food option, I'd recommend you check out my Nom Nom dog food review. That was a great tasting dog food that came in at a lower price point. But if you do decide to go forward with either the farmer's dog or Ollie for your pup, make sure to use my links in the description of this video to get a nice discount. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps you find a delicious fresh dog food for your pup.